back to another episode of the Inside Voice podcast. If you're new around here, welcome in. My name is Jess, and I'm so happy to be here. We're going to take a little break from our cultivated series that we've been doing. Basically, how do we create a life that is thriving and beautiful, almost like a beautiful garden? Like, it's springtime right now. I have been out diligently trying to be consistent in taking care of the flower beds that I have out front of our house, just to have something beautiful to look at. And I feel like the early phases of that, like the growing season, is so incredibly important for you to get in there and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. And I think the same is for our lives as well. You know, if you want this beautiful life, you've got to prepare, you've got to prune, you got to clean out the dead stuff. You've got to consistently be out there checking on things, checking in on things, basically being very much involved if you want to have this beautiful garden. So we're going to pause on that for a second because my husband and I actually just got back from vacation, and I did something that maybe would make Gen Z and below like clutch their pearls just to come on, it's like the older generation with the pearls, but the younger generation would be clutching them. It's a funny little juxtaposition there. But I did something that honestly I think would make Gen Z kind of freak out a little bit. I did a social media cleanse. Now, maybe that's unfair to put that just on Gen Z, because I think about millennials. You know, we remember life before social media. We remember life before MySpace. We might have been young, might have been a little older, but we remember that. We remember when Facebook was only for college kids. Can you imagine? Like, you had to have a college email address in order to register for a Facebook profile. Kids these days, like, you don't even have to be 13 to be on a social media platform. Like, they just don't enforce things like they used to. But yeah, like, we remember that. So maybe a little bit of millennials are also kind of addicted to social media. I'm not necessarily saying that Gen Z is addicted to it, but it's just a part of their normal day-to-day life. I feel like the younger generation, and maybe even younger, myself included because I'm a millennial, my age and down, like, we feel a need to be on social media. We feel almost a right to be on social media. Like, we will frame social media as like, this is our free speech. We will frame it as we deserve to know what's going on for real. Like, we will make every excuse in the book to be on social media, right? And also these days, people make a living on social media. People are on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and they're selling things, or they're influencers. And it's a full-blown career for people to not just be on social media, but have an entire career. And just to be online and have an entire career. Like, that's just kind of the way that our industry has gotten to, I guess, is the way to put it. But yeah, I decided to get away from it for a little bit, and I learned some things during that time. Now, this wasn't just like a day. This wasn't just like a week. This was actually 13 days that I was not on social media. Now, for those of you that are following me on social media, you're like, that's not true, Jess, because we saw you posting. I scheduled stuff out. It's the beauty of technology these days. You can be on social media without actually being on social media. It's crazy, right? So I did plan ahead, and I did schedule out some things. So if you saw me with videos or posts or whatever on social media at Miss Radio Jess, it was all pre-prepared. So, which I think actually made things a lot easier. I think if I wasn't putting anything on social media, if I didn't feel like my presence was there, it probably would have been a little more difficult for me to be away from it, which is just wild and bananas to me. There's a big part of me that wishes that I could say, oh, no, I can get away from social media cold turkey and live off the grid. It'd be totally fine. Yes and no. There's a part of me that romanticizes that. And for so many people, I think that's the case. But again, going back to people making a living on social media, you know, what I'm trying to build here with the Inside Voice podcast and the community that I'm trying to create, like, social media is just a part of that. You know what I mean? And you probably feel the same way. Like, you might have a business and you're trying to sell things or market yourself on social media. You might actually be an influencer. You might be doing brand deals. You might be like Mom Talk, and like, that's how you bring in money. That's how you pay your mortgage. There's nothing wrong with that. And being able to schedule that stuff out ahead of time definitely gives you peace of mind if you're if you're bringing in revenue on social media or online in general. But yeah, for 13 days, I did not open an app and I did not scroll an app. I want to be specific with that because there were times I tapped the app and I was like, get off my screen. But yeah, so my husband and I, we did this grand, I call it Beverly Hillbillies adventure. We took a trailer and went across the country for a couple of RC races. I've shared with you before that my husband is very big into remote control cars. Like that is his hobby. It's becoming more and more of his personality. And it's great to see. Honestly, I love, I preach about hobbies. I'm figuring out what my hobbies are. He would love for my hobby to be RC. I mean, we would be able to spend more time together. I guess that would be a bonus. But it's nice to see somebody that, works really hard in his career, but also knows how to check out and enjoy some part of his life that he really, really loves. That's something that I truly admire about my husband and anybody that has a hobby that they're invested in. So much so that they're willing to like be in a trailer going across the country to engage in it. But we did a couple of races. I did not race, he did. And one of them was really big. We got to see some friends that we hadn't seen in a long time, which was nice. Some people that we met last year at this race that were back again this year. The RC community I'm not getting paid to say this, but I will say is a great community. There are so many wonderful people who race these toy cars and they're just delightful. So if you're looking for a hobby, I would recommend it. Check it out. Who knows? You might love it. You might be really good at it. Who knows? But yeah, so 13 days, no social media whatsoever. Now, granted, it was easier to not be on social media. I'll say this from the get-go because the routine was different. Like, obviously, we were on vacation. Our environment was different. We were not at home. I wasn't working. So, it was easier to not get on the apps, but it was kind of tricky. I'll be honest with you. So if you'll indulge me, I'll just go through some of the notes that I took during that time. I was going to document it video-wise to put on social media, and then I was like, that's too much. Let's just check out a little bit more than that. But day one, there were plenty of distractions. Like I said, we were literally loading up in a trailer and driving across the country. We were immediately meeting up with friends to go to the first race. So it was easier to not be on social media because obviously we were engaging with friends and that was fun. So it was easy to not be on social media. Day two, the muscle memory really started kicking in. I noticed I would reach for my phone in a moment of like boredom. I would reach for my phone in like a dull moment. I wouldn't go to like Instagram or Facebook immediately, but if I was on another app, like checking the weather or playing a game or something like that, as soon as I X'd out of it, swiped out of it, my thumb would go directly to Instagram. It was just a natural reaction. And I was able to stop myself a lot, but like I said, there were times when I actually tapped the app and it loaded and I'm like, ah. I think I saw one post from my friend about a girls' dinner that she went to or something like that. I was like, okay. Hopefully that still counts as me being cleansed of social media for 13 days. But day three is when I started feeling the effects of, wait, I've posted stuff. I've got stuff scheduled. How am I going to check in on it? Well, I had already agreed with myself to do this cleanse that if I was going to post stuff, I wasn't going to look at it, which was harder than I thought it was going to be. Everybody always says that when you post something on social media, you have to engage with people as soon as they engage with it. Like if somebody comments on it, you got to respond immediately, especially in those first few moments when the post goes up, because then Instagram goes, oh, people are interacting with this and the author cares about it. Let's share it with more people. Spoiler alert, not the case in my experience. So don't stress out about that. But I wanted to see the progress. I wanted to see how well they were doing and if they were landing the way that I thought that they landed. And, I just wanted to see, but didn't get on social media. Day 4 and 5, I kind of started reasoning with myself a little bit. It's almost like going through grief, right? There's denial, there's reasoning, there's all sorts of feelings that you go through. I didn't feel like the withdrawal of it, but I was kind of like, from a professional standpoint, I should check in. No. I didn't allow myself to do that. But that's really because by day 5, I had actually replaced social media with a game. My habits of being on my phone shifted from let's see what everybody else is doing to let's play this pretty game with all the flashing lights and the pretty colors. You know what I mean? And the level advancements and the coins that you're collecting. I play Homescapes. I don't know if you guys play this. I started this years ago, and I might be the only one that's still playing. I don't know. They keep adding more levels and more houses and facilities to renovate. I think after this trip, I have surpassed level 6,000. If I'm being completely honest. Again, I've been playing this for years. My husband calls it Candy Crush. It's not Candy Crush. It's Homescapes. So yeah, I didn't necessarily get away from screens completely because I found a way to replace social media and entertain myself, and that was with a game. So not entirely proud of that, but I didn't say I was doing a screen cleanse. I just said a social media cleanse. So I stuck to it. Day 7, I wrote, what do I talk about? That's literally all I put in my notes. Again, like we were in a trailer, camped out at this RC track, other people there in their trailers and stuff. And it was like the old days where you had to like ask people about themselves and not just, talk about a funny meme that you saw, or, oh, did you see this on Instagram? Or, oh, did you see what's happening in the news or whatever, or, oh, I saw this funny thing and, or my friend was doing this. Like I had to just really engage with people. I love that, right? I like getting to know people's stories. And I think really looking back at it and reflecting, it was more, I had to rework a muscle that maybe had fatigued a little bit or maybe had atrophied a little bit. I have been inhibited of connecting with people because of social media, because social media keeps everything like surface level, and if that's your point of reference for any topic of conversation, like of course it's going to feel superficial. It's not going to feel real, right? So, yeah, it was kind of like a welcome challenge of like, no, really, like get to know these people, like ask them about their lives. Like such a topic of an entry point for conversation was our dog Oliver, who was there with us, and everybody wanted to come by and see him and snuggle with him and say hi to him and everything. And that would easily open up conversations of like, well, how many dogs do you have? And oh, you've got kids, and where do you live? And stuff like that. So, but yeah, just not defaulting to whatever is popular on social media was kind of refreshing. So I'm like thankful for that. Days 8 through 10, no tapping on the apps. Not really an urge to get on the apps either. I think this is where I really kind of hit that turning point where it's like, mostly because I felt like anything that I would have missed out on is probably like super old news. But I think also after not being on social media for a week, it was kind of like, I haven't done it for a week. Why would I ruin that now? Day 11, I wrote that I was feeling more creative and imaginative. I actually was coming up with ideas in my mind of, I'm writing a nonfiction book and I want to write a fiction book, and I've got a story in my head, and really just kind of exploring these characters that I've kind of dreamed up in my head and kind of like what their storylines and stuff like that. Like it was kind of cool to feel myself be creative like that again and imaginative, and it reminded me of being a kid. It reminded me of growing up in the middle of nowhere and not really having friends coming over to our house. Like I created storylines in my head to keep myself entertained as I was playing outside. And it felt like I was back in that world. Like I was 6-7-year-old Jess again, like just wild, crazy, having fun, just imagining anything and everything that I wanted to. Like it was really, really cool. And again, thankful for that experience. Probably wouldn't have had it if I was just filling it with whatever was on my feed. And then finally, day 12, this was actually when we got back to our house from our trip. I told myself as soon as we got home, I could get back on social media. We had so much to do because obviously both of us were going back to work the next day, that there was no time for anything. It was like laundry and cook and unpack and clean and, get the trailer turned around. And like we something broke on the trailer, so we had to go drop it off and, all sorts of stuff. And then we just fell into bed at like 7:00 at night to go to sleep because we were so exhausted. I really didn't feel any sense of urgency to jump back on. I remember I told myself, I'll do it when I have time. When is the last time you have thought that about social media? Oh, I'll scroll when I have time. Oh, I'll check in when I have time. Oh, I'll post that thing when I have time. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like Instagram has become, or just social media in general, it might be TikTok for you, it might be Facebook for you, whatever it is, it can feel so much like that's our world, you know? And if we're not engaging with it, then we're not truly living because we don't know everything about everybody everywhere at one time. You know what I mean? And it kind of like we prioritize it, right? And so I'd gotten to this point where my priorities were to eat, sleep, and get myself ready for the work week. Not scroll. And it was nice, you know? Again, this probably sounds extreme to some people out there thinking like, okay, this girl really has a social media problem. I don't think I'm as addicted to it as other people, but then again, that might just be me in denial. I did learn, you know, my closing thoughts for this. I wrote down some overall thoughts of the week, or the 13 days that I was off. I experienced less anxiety in those 13 days. I've shared with you before that I have had bouts with anxiety since losing my mom. I think anytime you lose somebody so tragically and so suddenly, it does make you second guess a lot. And so I've dealt with that. So much less anxiety not being on social media. If I can offer that as any piece of advice for you if you're struggling with anxiety. Number two, I felt more focused. Part of my anxiety is feeling like I didn't do something on the checklist, you know, leaving the house, or even like when we would leave the trailer to go do a race, you know, and I'd had to pit for my husband. Like the checklist was so much easier. Like I did that. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Something about being on social media, I feel like has contributed to me not trusting myself that I did what I was supposed to do. You know, it's like the common example of, did I turn off my straightener? You know, did I turn off my curling iron? I felt more confident being like, first of all, I didn't have my heating tools with me on the trailer, but I think if I had, I would have felt more confident knowing that they were off. You know what I mean? Like walking out of the house, it's off. I want to dive into like the research on that, but I think that there might be something to that. My screen time was down 17% for 13 days. Again, that's not specific social media, that is screen time in general. It would have been a lot lower. It would have been down so much more had I not replaced social media with a game. I fully believe that. Nothing was lost. Part of, I think, one of the reasons why we don't want to get off social media is if we're doing anything contributing wise on social media, whether we are running a business on social media, whether our business is social media, or even just, you know, trying to build a platform or a community on social media. Like I shared with you, I felt like, oh, if I'm not engaging, I'm not going to get the views that I normally get. Like I'm going to plummet and it's going to be awful. And it's going to be terrible. No, that did not happen. I compared numbers with the posts that I scheduled out with posts that I was actively engaged with when they went up. No difference. Really, not at all. Same amount of comments, same amount of views, same amount of likes. Like it really almost was like nobody noticed or cared that I wasn't on social media. That's a beautiful thing if you're running a business, right? So you don't have to worry about it. You know, your business is going to be able to run itself even if you're not there. But also I think it just goes to show you like, where are your priorities? You don't have to be refresh. Did I get another like? Refresh. Did I get another like? You don't have to live like that, okay? At least in my experience. Maybe I'm not big enough to have to worry about that, but yeah. Also, old habits came back quickly. I shared with you, we got back. The next day I started work. I use social media for work. I'm on social media for work. I'm a country music broadcaster and content creator. And so, you know, scrolling through and seeing what Lainey Wilson's been up to, Luke Combs has been up to, you know, so we can write stories or, you know, republish on social media. Like that's just a part of what I do every single day. And so obviously I had to be back on social media, but even when I went back to my personal stuff, I found myself slipping into the same routine of comparison, feeling anxious, like all of those negative things that I don't like when I am abusing social media, when I'm just on it to scroll, when I'm not contributing, when I'm not using it for something that is productive, you know what I mean? And I also found that my habit of reaching my phone quickly came back as well. So I don't know if you do this at your job, but when I reach a stopping point, I immediately reach for my phone. For me, a lot of my stopping points are, okay, I finished recording this show, reach for my phone. And I'll tell myself, oh, it's because I need to clear my mind so I can do the next show. So I can put aside everything that I just talked about with this show and I can focus on the next show or focus on anything else that needs to be recorded or written. That's not necessarily the case. It's just a bad habit of reaching for the phone. But ultimately, I think what I realized is a cleanse is a good thing. Maybe 13 days is not feasible for you. Totally fine. Maybe 13 hours is a little more feasible for you. This has actually got me thinking I want to get away from social media more often. Actually, the first sermon that I listened to coming back from our vacation was about the Sabbath. And I've always thought of the Sabbath as like, don't work. But now I think it's more than that. I think it's also like, be careful what you're consuming every single day. Be careful, of overdoing it, and bringing stressors and strife into your life that doesn't need to be there. And social media can definitely be a contributor to that. So I'm testing out, starting this week, a social media Sabbath. And, the work would also be a part of that too. And a lot of what prepares you for a good rest day that I'm learning this early on is that you have to prepare for the rest. So if you're going to take that one day of not being on social media, not being engaged with work, not checking emails, not taking phone calls, whatever it may be for you, maybe all of those things, you have to put in the work for the 6 days prior so you can actually do that. If social media is something that you use for your business, get all that stuff scheduled, get all that stuff ready to go. So that way, when your rest day comes, you don't feel the pull and the anxiety of it, and you can truly take a break. So that's something I'm going to incorporate as I move forward. Maybe you'll feel inspired to do the same. And yeah, social media, I'm curious to see what the research shows as the years and the decades go on, because we can talk about being distracted, we can talk about comparison and anxiety. Sometimes I think social media just gets you out of time. You know what I mean? Like, we used to see social media, back in the not the 1900s, but like the early 2000s, and even when Facebook and Instagram first became a thing, you used to go through your timeline, and that's what it was, a timeline. You saw things in chronological order working backwards, and you could actually catch up on your feed and it was done. Now it's like, and I certainly saw this after being on vacation and getting on social media, I would think that something was current and it was actually 6 days old. And I think that happens a lot to us. This algorithm doesn't really care if something is current. It just wants to show you something that it thinks that you would be interested in. And I was just talking to my husband about this the other day, like that throws you off. That messes with your internal clock because you're like, I don't even know what day it is on social media, So I think there's going to be a lot of mental clarity of getting away from the platform, even if it's just like one day a week or even just like a couple hours a day or whatever, like just to get yourself grounded again. So I would encourage you and challenge you to take part in this as well if you would like to. One day a week, like let's just get away from it. Again, if this is your business and you're panicking, thinking, I can't not be on social media, schedule out your stuff ahead of time and then just put it away. I honestly believe one of the things that I say in my show every day, because I do a midday show from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., like when we get to the lunch hour is your time. Like get away from work, get away from the emails, get away from the phone calls just for that 1 hour. Clean your mind out, cleanse your mind, like refresh yourself, go get something to eat, get some sunshine, take a few steps, use that as like a halftime, in like the middle of a football game, like use that time to refocus before you dive back into the workday. And I think if we can take one day to just get away from the craziness that social media can sometimes bring into our lives, it would actually free our minds to be a little more creative the next time we show up on social media. I truly believe that that could be the case. I'm trying it out for myself, but taking one day, especially since I work in a creative field in all aspects, like My job is creative. This podcast is creative. Writing a book is creative. All of that like pulls at my mind in a creative sense. And it's like, if I can just step away from it for a little bit, it would give myself a chance to breathe and maybe come up with some other good ideas. I know that because when I stepped away from social media for 13 days, I was feeling more imaginative and more creative and more alive. So why don't we try to incorporate that into our routine consistently? And I don't know, maybe some wonderful things are going to come out of that. So if there's anything that I can leave you with and encourage you with is, if social media is a problem for you, or if it just feels like you're always on it, maybe you don't feel like you're addicted to it, that's fine. Maybe just step away from it a little bit. Again, like I said, I didn't feel like I was addicted to social media. I felt like I needed to use social media to grow whatever I feel like God has called me to. That's another thing. It's like social media is not going to do for you anything that God can't do for you. Like, social media will never compare to what God can do. You might think, well, if I give up one day being on social media, my business is going to tank. How much do you doubt the Lord of the universe, who operates outside of time and space and social media and timelines and posts and likes and views, for crying out loud? You don't think that if you diligently apply yourself for 6 days, that he wouldn't bless you just because you were off for one day? Actually, I think he would. It's in the Bible. He's calling you to take that break. He is calling you to step aside for just a moment and breathe. So I think if you are a follower of Christ, like, this should be on your to-do list. I feel very convicted about it. It's probably where the passion's coming from, because I do feel like, oh no, I need to spread out my time and make sure and do blah, blah, blah. No, just take one day to not engage. Focus on things that are more important. Give yourself a chance to relax. And I feel like God will honor that in the long run. I feel like he promises us that he will honor that in the long run. So let's give it a shot, shall we? If you want, you can send me the day that you're going to choose or the time block that you're going to choose to not be on social media. I'm not saying screens in general, but I think specifically social media. And maybe if we get really good at like checking out from social media for a little bit, we can check out from other things that are maybe pulling at us a little too much. Who knows? This could open up some big doors. But I would love to share in this with you, like take that break. Tell me what day you're taking the break. So I can think and pray for you, but also, share with me what you've noticed when you're taking those breaks and what you've noticed collectively, like as the weeks go on, as the months go on. I think a lot of doors are going to be opened up to you if you just give yourself a chance to breathe, to step away from the scroll. So what do you say? You want to try it? Let's do it. We'll be back into our Cultivated series next week, talking about cultivating a beautiful life for ourselves. And I will see you then.